Welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Jake Gordon and Alex Lord. The Falcons wrapped up the NFL draft this weekend. It started off with Bijan Robinson, which is why I had to break back out the cowboy hat for this episode. I feel like, Alex, maybe you have kind of been, predicting this for a while, just like without people knowing, rocking the cowboy hat for all the podcasts, for all the videos, letting people know Bijan was going to be the pick. I know we talked about it in an episode right after Thursday's draft, the first round. But let's start off with Bijan Robinson. Again, guy's a home run. He's going to be a stud. He's going to be a superstar. And the more I think about it, and the more I think about all the personnels that they're going to be able to run, and I typed out the Falcons' skill position list, and I was like, dude, this group is good. And like the way that the versatility of the group, Cordell Patterson can now be more of a receiver. Bijan can be more of a receiver. Algier will still be on the field a lot of the snaps. Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, if he takes the next step, it's a pretty good group. And Scotty Miller, he adds a little bit of speed to it. So it's a very interesting group, versatile group that I think Arthur Smith pulling the strings, this could be a really, really underrated offense.
Yeah, and I did my draft grades recently. If you haven't seen those, check them out. It's kind of a joke at this point. It's a running joke that we always do the draft grades because they don't mean anything. And I do think it's funny now we've seen this media swing to where everybody is so afraid to give anybody a bad grade. Like you don't want to be that guy from Bleacher Report who said the Seahawks had the worst draft ever when they picked Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner and like Bruce Irvin or somebody. But I do think the Falcons did pretty good, especially in the first round. I gave Bijan an A+. I think he's the best player in the draft. If not, he's one of the three best. And if he stays healthy, there's just no way this kid's going to fail. He's that good. And I'm excited to watch him too. He's going to bring a lot of excitement. And I think that's something that a lot of people are overlooking. Maybe you want this position because you think we need this position. Nah, just get the best player.
Yeah, context matters. Thinking about this pick in a vacuum is never going to, net serious analysis. Like you said, Chase, this offense is very positionless. Cordero Patterson and Bijan, to your point, can split out and run routes, just like a receiver. Kyle Pitts is basically a wide receiver. Drake London can align anywhere. Jonnu Smith is closer to an H-back than a tight end. He can line up in the backfield. Hell, he could carry the ball out of the backfield. There's so many different ways that Arthur Smith can attack defenses now. And to Jake's point, Sundays are going to be fun again. And I'm more excited about that. And I've said it a couple times. We all won a Super Bowl, no doubt about that. But winning a Super Bowl is it's impossible. Like very few teams win a Super Bowl. I think it's harder than any other sport because there's less games. Injuries are more frequent. And there's a litany of other reasons. But still, it's basically impossible. This is a good offense. It's going to be fun to watch football again for the Falcons. Mercedes-Benz is going to be packed out. And I said it after the pick, and I kind of meant it jokingly, but I kind of don't. That, in a few years, Bijan Robinson, if he remains healthy, is going to be a bigger star than Trae Young and Ronald Acuna Jr. in the city of Atlanta. And that's not to say that he'll be a better player in his respective sport, because Ronald Acuna is a top 3 talent in baseball. But football, especially in the South, will always reign king. If the Falcons are good, not Super Bowl contenders, but hosting a playoff game, there will be more eyeballs and more butts in the seat at Falcons game than Braves stadiums, which is crazy to say because this is a team that just came off of a World Series and they're regularly setting attendance records. Football will always be king in the South, and if Bijan Robinson is the most exciting player on the Falcons, I don't think that's crazy to say that he could be the biggest star Atlanta has seen since Julio Jones, probably.
Yeah, and to your point too, I had a similar post to where, we'll get to these guys too. In the second round and third round, they came away with a guard and an edge, 2 positions that people were really worried about. And I said, I was led to believe that we only got 1 pick. I thought it was just the running back. No, they had more picks in the draft. Now we got some guys that are going to get cut. We know Terry Fontenot is a guy who heavily looks at Canadian football, XFL. This is where he makes his money. This is where he does his best work, allegedly. At least in New Orleans, that's what he did. But there's still going to be room to add. We look at a guy like Corey Davis that could potentially be getting cut. He's definitely makes a lot of sense for the Falcons. Maybe a lineman, a linebacker, maybe another edge rusher. This is actually crazy because for the first time under this regime, we have a roster full of competent players, and we're actually going to have to start talking about cuts. We look at the first year, they added 25 undrafted free agents just to make it work, with salary constraints and everything. But this team can add some guys. And I think taking a running back in the top 10 is a luxury pick, but you got the best player, and I think that's really important. And I'm excited to watch him. I'm really excited. I think he is going to be a star And I can't say enough. I mean, I would have liked to have had Jalen Carter. Everybody that's a Georgia fan, you see the flag over my shoulder. They would love to have Jalen Carter. At the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and disparage Bijan because maybe I wanted somebody else. I love the kid.
Yeah.
I'm excited for him. He seems like he's just going to be a rock star from day one.
Yeah, and I think everything that I've seen from Bijan, I mean, and as far as character goes, like you just hear him talk, and I didn't really have a good feel on his personality before we drafted him, but like now everything interviews that I've seen from him since we've drafted him, it's like, yeah, this guy is exactly what Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith wanted as a person. I mean, it's just like everything has been talked about. You know, what are you going to do? Like, do all this celebration? No, I'm going to church. Like, I'm going to go celebrate with my family. Like, he's just a high character captain guy. Like, that is who they want in the building. And when you look at maybe the potential option between Jalen Carter and Bijan Robinson, you can see why this particular regime, who put such high value on that, went with Robinson. And he's a slam dunk. But let's talk about the second round pick, Matthew Bergeron, because he really could be even more key to the Falcons' immediate success than Robinson. If that guy can slot in and be a day one starter, which is what they're projecting, I mean, that is the plan. You don't pick this guy, you don't trade up and pick this guy 38 for when you have a hole at left guard and not expect him to start at left guard. And I didn't know a lot about Bergeron, but everything that I've read as far as, experts and draft profiles and how much do they really know, we don't know. They're pretty impressed with him. And you saw the Dallas Cowboys considering taking him with the 26th overall pick. They've always been pretty good at finding some good linemen. That's got to make you feel a little bit better. So I know the first, at least from me, and I know a lot of fans' initial reaction was like, who the hell is this guy? Another Jalen Mayfield, a kick-in guy from tackle. Oh, here we go again. But I think the regime you have to at least hope. Making a mistake as a GM is one thing. Making it twice, you got to hope you learn from your mistakes, and this Bergeron guy can come in and start at left guard. And if that's the case, you sound out a really good offensive line that was already pretty good a year ago. It got better, and you add Bijan Robinson, and you get hopefully a better quarterback in Desmond Ridder, and you're starting to get me excited.
Yeah, and something about Bergeron too is we've seen these reports that he was expected to go a lot higher than he actually did. I don't hate the pick at all, but this is turning into, we're starting to notice some trends with the Falcons. On day one, they're going to go best player available. On day two, we'll see him go a little off the wall for some needs. Like Bergeron, he was one that I really didn't expect. They did trade up to get him, but they only gave up. They had an extra 4th round pick, so they gave that up, which I liked. Mainly because they kept it in this draft. They didn't have to give up anything in the future that we have to account for. But the player that actually got taken with that pick, I was super high on. It was the Northwestern kid that fell pretty far due to medicals. But that's neither here nor there. I think Bergeron was a good pickup. I think he got an instant starter at left guard. And apparently, he played left tackle his whole time at Syracuse. So they might try to make him a little bit of a flex tackle too if he doesn't win that left guard spot. But I think he's going to, because I don't think the competition is going to be very stiff unless they sign somebody in free agency.
Yeah, no offense. If he doesn't win it, I think that's an immediate
red flag,
immediate bad look on the Falcons.
Well, he's supposedly the best run. Yeah, he's supposedly the best run blocker in this class.
They started Jalen Mayfield in the 3rd round. If they don't start Bergeron after trading up for him in the 2nd round, and they watch Jalen Mayfield just look like an idiot, look like a complete potato, a tomato can, whatever you want to call him. He was an absolute bum, the worst offensive lineman in football. They started him all season after drafting him in the 3rd round. If you trade up in the 2nd round and then don't start him, that's an awful sign. That is an awful sign.
This kid's a perfect scheme fit. I mean, he's a really good athlete, strong run blocker, above average pass blocker, nothing too crazy, but a lot of people are really excited about this pick, and I think it was a solid one. I gotta give it a stamp. I think I gave it a B+, which is, we'll see. I did like a couple other options at guard, but that's just my opinion, anyways. We'll see. If this kid wants to come in and prove me wrong, I'll be more than happy.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he was. I don't know enough about a lot of these prospects, and that's why I do think the whole way too early draft grades from some of these guys. It's like, did you ever expect Matthew Bergeron to be picked 38th by the Falcons? No, I didn't even have him on my radar. But then you read more and more about him, and you're like, yeah, this guy could be pretty good. He fits a need. I thought we were going to get a left guard in free agency. Maybe if they had got one in free agency, it wouldn't have been such a need in the draft. But going younger and getting better across the offensive line in an offense like Arthur Smith's is never a bad decision, in my opinion. So if they like this guy, if they think he was worth trading up, if they picked him in the 38th, if the Cowboys thought they were going to take him 26th overall, I'm happy with it. I mean, until you show me otherwise, like, I'm going to think this guy's going to be our starting left guard, and we needed one. So
yeah, I don't like to disparage these kids. We see a lot of that too, and it's really annoying when people just, like, if it's not your guy, they just go on there and they're like, what we picked this bum for? Like, dude, just give him a chance. Like, you don't know everything. We've seen this plenty of times. It's kind of asinine at a certain point, but The next guy I did predict in one of my like 1,500 mock drafts. So, wide net.
You got to get a few right.
You gotta see a couple go through the hoop. But Zach Harrison, same pick, 3rd round, 75th pick. He looks the part. There's a reason he was a 5-star out of high school. He's 6'6". He's got over 36 inch arms. I think that's actually one of the best in the NFL now. After he comes into the league, I believe he's in like a top 1%. It's actually really impressive. His issue is never really developed at Ohio State. They have a pedigree for developing pass rushers, and you got some questions about that. But you watch him on the field, and a lot of the times you could tell that he's thinking. But sometimes when he doesn't think and he just does, you're like, whoa, this guy's pretty good. And I think he can be a pretty good run defender almost immediately. So I love this pick. Love might be a strong word. I really like this pick. I think it's great value in the 3rd round because if this kid develops, like if Nielsen really comes in and develops this kid and gets him to be more instinctual, he could be an absolute monster and one of the best picks in this entire draft.
Yeah, opposed to the other 2 picks, I mean, I doubt Harrison sees more than 15 snaps a game, whereas the other 2, I think I speak for a lot of fans, we expect Bijan to take more than 50% of the snaps at running back, and Bergeron, fingers crossed, 100% of the snaps at left guard, whereas Zach Harrison is not, in terms of development, he's not there, and the opportunities just aren't there. For once in a while, the defensive line is actually stacked. There's not really that many opportunities for him to play. Calais Campbell's not going to even see 50 snaps a game. So let alone Zach Harrison, who, just like you said, and that's what stuck out to me at Ohio State, who is, notorious for developing that exact position. For a guy who has been highly touted since high school, just like you said, all the physicals, they're off the charts. The guy is just a freak of nature, made in a football lab, never really developed at Ohio State. That's not to say he can't in the NFL, but for anybody who's expecting this guy to turn into, an elite pass rusher, they should better reel in their expectations because I doubt this guy plays much at all, barring injuries. But I think he slots in, in that similar to a Calais Campbell type role. He'll be, in a 4-eye, on early downs, probably kick out wide on obvious pass rushing downs. He's not going to get those opportunities, but that's the role he's probably assuming. You got to love the tangibles. It's very clear the Falcons have a type in terms of the long arms across a defensive line, and also another captain at Ohio State. And that's going to be a continual theme, not just this draft, not just last draft, and not just the first draft, but regardless of who they pick, they're high character individuals.
Yeah, I agree too. And, something that speaks to this pick as well. The Falcons, I don't think they really needed to go get somebody like that. That's just going to be, we need you to come in immediately and get us 10 sacks. They needed some blood at the position is what they needed. You look at, Bud Dupree on a 1-year deal, Lorenzo Carter on a 2-year deal with an out. They needed some blood. They needed some fresh bodies. I think Ade Ogundeji is firmly on the bubble to make this roster. And I would say more likely than not, he's going to get cut. And you got AK-47 and Malone. We're not really sure what those guys are going to end up being, but they needed some bodies for sure. And, I really like what they've done on defense this offseason. And, we praised them not handing out a bunch of grotesque long contracts, but part of that is you're going to have to replace these guys at a certain point.
So, to that point, what I was going to say is, yes, Ogundeji is definitely on the bubble, but he might not be as much as some people think, only because of what you just said. All of these guys, except for David Onyemata, are on 1-year deals, and they might be gone next year. So there will be a whole bunch of holes to fill next offseason as well. And that's not to say they can't. And I think that's why a lot of people do have, some right to argue against the Jalen Carter thing, aside from the character issues, which none of us can really even vouch for. We don't know, but he wasn't on the Falcons big board. So, they weren't comfortable with it. But Jalen Carter would have given them a future at the position. Right now, we're just set for 2023. There is no future. And I think the Zach Harrison pick is kind of gearing towards the future. He's not going to play a lot this year. Special teams guy probably. But they're probably hoping, in an ideal scenario, he'd turn into a starter next season. So the future outlook is grim. Yeah, he can. That's not to say he can't. But, yeah, I think the future outlook kind of entails Ogundeji and those other guys are going to be under contract just because, he's cheap. You don't get rid of cheap bodies. He's a fifth round guy. He might take another year to develop. Who knows? He could have a breakout year this year. Nobody knows. I just doubt that, they're going to get rid of a cheap guy on what he's got a 4-year deal or a 3-year deal.
He didn't. No, he was 21, so he's got maybe. Yeah, I mean, he didn't.
He's got 2 more seasons. Yeah.
He's going to have a big camp, but I think we've talked about this too. Is having a competent rotation of pass rushers before getting a guy. We talk about them having money and the pass rushers coming into free agency. Chase Young is one. If you really want to take that kind of a swing, getting a group of competent guys who can get to the quarterback and then maybe getting that one big guy is more important than just getting the one big guy. So I like the move. I love the pick. Yeah. I think it was a great value at that point in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Alex as far as Zach Harrison's not going to play very much, if at all, this year on defense. But I do think it's another body in there. You look at him, you look at AK-47, you look at D'Angelo Malone coming into their second seasons. You look at having a guy, some veterans, pass rushers in the building like Calais Campbell. Those are the kind of guys you want to bring in, get coached up by a guy, and hopefully he helps with their development. So they don't have to come and be superstars, but if one of those guys turns up and takes the next step, the Falcons do have a competent rotation and a piece to look forward to in the upcoming seasons. And listen, like we have a draft next year, we have free agency next year where we can fill in those holes. Right now, I don't look at the defensive line at any position. I'm like, that's a huge weakness, which was not the case last year. Pretty much the entire defensive line was a ginormous weakness. And hopefully one of these 3 guys in AK-47, Harrison, Malone, even Ogundeji, if he sticks on the roster, hopefully one of them can take the next step and you got something working there. So I like the pick. I like the upside. It definitely fits a need. But I think the 4th round pick, as far as Jake, I know you wrote about this. I think you gave it an A+.
I did. I love this value. Best value. I gave it an A just because it is a 4th round pick. If Clark Phillips was 4 inches taller, he would have been a 1st round pick. There's no question about that. You turn on the tape, he was bucking with Jordan Addison, actually shut down Jordan Addison. He was bucking with Drake London. He looked, especially in that Pac-12 championship, he was really on Jordan Addison. He had him in Rikers. I mean, he had this guy locked up, and he plays bigger than 5'8". He reminds me a little bit of LaMarcus Joyner. He's kind of got that safety flexibility, can kind of play everywhere. But he's a dog, man. Like, he's just like, I think that's just part of that edge you get when you're a smaller guy. You listen to him talk, and he sounds like a coach. Like, he's a very smart player, and he's physical. He's tough as hell, and that's the type of stuff you get from a guy that's undersized. And he's got a lot of spunk, man. I really like him. I had him mocked earlier as a 1st, 2nd round pick, and there's not 112 better players than him in this draft. I can promise you that. I'm very excited to watch this kid. I think he's going to get on the field early. I think he could take Mike Hughes' spot and be a starting nickel, which is probably what he's going to be reduced to. I guess, for lack of a better term, he's probably only going to be a nickel just because of his size. But the kid's got spunk, man. I really love him. He's got great ball skills, had 4 pick sixes in college. Great ball skills. He's very, very competitive, tough. I see why the Falcons liked him a lot, and I love the value at this pick.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, the intangibles. I saw him speak at the podium, and he sounded so eloquent. Like yeah, he's so eloquent, and he chooses his words wisely. And yet, again, another captain. I mean, it's the same thing with all of these guys. And everything that you said about on the field is similar to off the field. He's a home run in that sense. And the cornerback
unanimous All-American.
Yeah, and the cornerback position is in a similar place as the defensive line, and that Mike Hughes is the only guy here other than Terrell that's long-term, and Mike Hughes is on a 2-year deal. There's no guarantee Jeff Okudah's back next year, injuries, production, we hope that it works out the best for the Falcons, but there's no guarantee. In fact, it's probably unlikely. And just like you said, this guy can slot into the into the nickel role seamlessly. I think that
Mike Phillips is a 1-1 too, pretty much. They can get out under his contract for like $750,000 next year if they want to cut.
I mean, this pick to me, I think really solidifies the corner room. I think it really. Who was it? Devontae Hughes or whatever said coming into the 4th round, oh, we don't need a corner. I don't know what you were watching, but Jeff Okudah is not going to come here and be an all-star. Mike Hughes is You definitely needed another corner, and I think the Falcons got one of the better ones in the draft. And I think I reiterate everything you guys said. Listening to him talk, the guy is a stud on the podium. You could tell he's got a good head on his shoulders, which is highly valued. He on the field, he was one of the guys that really stood out at Utah. And I know college, to me, I know I get the whole body size thing. I get all that stuff matters. He plays way bigger than that. He's a guy who stood out at Utah. And I feel like every time during the draft, I watch guys play in college who, for one reason or another, don't go in the top 3 rounds, whatever. And I'm watching the games in college, and I'm like, bro, this guy's a stud. Like, how is he not picked? I don't care if he's 5'9" or whatever. He doesn't play like he's 5'9". He
No,
certainly doesn't think like he's 5'9". He's out there balling. So I think he's going to start in. I think he's going to start from week 1. Like, he may not, but I really do think he will.
He also comes from a Kyle Whittingham defense, which is one of the most complex in college football. That's up there with a smarter Saban defense. So he understands the game. And like I said, there's plenty of times he was matched. Him and Drake London got in a little scrum too. I mean, he was all over Drake London. And
Drake London's 6'5". Yeah, Drake London's 6. I mean, he's almost a foot taller than him, and he was ready to go at it like the whole game. So.
He has that mentality. He'll buck with anyone, and that's what I like in corners. When you see corners bust in the NFL, they're typically timid guys. Kinda, they don't really like to get up there and press. And this dude will kick your ass wherever, at point of attack, at the line of scrimmage. I just love his demeanor. I had him mocked in the first round, like way early in the season. This was like back in September. I'm telling you, if this kid was 6'1", he could have been a top 10 pick. We could have.
You're not the only one. Like, the consensus across the board, regardless if they're local guys or national guys, they all love this pick. They love Clark Phillips. They love the Falcons fit. And then what you just said, the value of the round, and 4th round is just unreal for how everybody else is talking about him. I'm not as familiar with him as you might be, but you kind of have to go with the group think. Everyone loves it.
Well, Jake, how about this? So picked 8 picks earlier, Kelly Ringo. You're obviously very familiar with him. I mean, in my opinion, I would rather have Clark Phillips than Kelly Ringo. And I know Georgia fans, and Georgia fans were up in arms about that. You got them saying they're going to go be Eagles fan. Listen, I'm all about cheering for your guys, but come on, bro. Let's be real. Like, Clark Phillips is a really good pick, and there's a very good chance he ends up being better than Kelly Ringo, and you got him 8 picks later. Like, calm down. Like, it's
Ringo's
okay.
also not much of a scheme fit. He also, there's just a lot of factors.
What people don't realize about the Eagles is, like, they have a complete roster. Like, they're taking shots on, like, hey, I'm taking a shot on Nolan Smith's athleticism. We can live if Jalen Carter busts in the top 10. If we had taken Jalen Carter and he busted in the top 10, it would have set us 3-4 years back.
There was so much more pressure on Jalen Carter if he had come to Atlanta than in Philadelphia.
Correct.
I mean, so much more.
Like, it's a great fit for him. It's a great fit for us. Like, it didn't make sense. So I know Georgia fans are up in arms, but relax. And I know this is a reactionary thing. I'm sure in a month people will be like, well, there's no way I'm actually cheering for the Eagles. Like, first of all, I would rather pour bleach in my eyeballs and my throat than cheer for a team from Philadelphia. Like, I hate that city. They're a bunch of losers. Like last year, if you would come up there in a Falcons jersey, they'd all be trying to kill you, and you're going to go join and be friends with them. Like, screw those guys. And screw the Phillies. Screw the Sixers too. I hate all of them. Like, listen, if this was an AFC team, I would be all for it. But you were talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. You're going to go be a fan of them. You lost me there. But let's get to these 2 7th-round picks. I'm going to say something on Wellams, the safety from Alabama.
DeMarco Hellams, yeah.
DeMarco Hellams. All right. I got the scouting report from Turner, who and it wasn't great. He was like, this guy sucks. He's a box safety, and Turner was like, he can't tackle, he can't cover. He cost us the Tennessee game. And I was like, well, special teamer maybe? And he's like, I don't know. You shouldn't have picked him.
He got eaten alive in that Tennessee game, but that was a bad mismatch. He shouldn't have never been in that spot. I'm just not a huge fan of taking a team's 3rd best safety in the draft. He was the 3rd safety from Alabama to go. I would have rather seen the Falcons take a swing on somebody with some medicals. Like, Andrew Voorhees was there. He was a guy who was getting 2nd-round talk, had some medicals. Jaden Hazelwood, former 5-star receiver coming out of Oklahoma, super fast. Or he transferred to Arkansas. Super fast, some speed at receiver. I would have rather take him swing at somebody with some upside instead of, a guy who's probably going to be a special teamer. That's just this was the one pick I really wasn't in love with, just because there were guys on the board that I would have preferred. Even Eli Ricks or somebody like that. Take somebody with some upside. With some upside.
That guy sucks. That guy's weak-minded. He's
on the Eagles. He's on the Eagles now too.
Yeah, well, he's not. He won't make the team.
Yeah.
He won't make the team.
I am going to push back. Special teams matter. The Falcons just had a top 5 special teams unit, and I'm not going to say this guy's even going to make the roster, but how you guys are talking about him could be a special teams ace.
Well, listen, that's what I'm saying. Like, if he is a special teams ace and that works out, and that's what they're drafting to be, which is probably what they are thinking. Like, I highly doubt they were ever thinking this guy's going to come in and play safety snaps in any situation at any point next year or in the next couple years. So if he turns out to be a good special teams guy, That's a good pick in the 7th round. It really is. I'm just saying, based off Turner played football at Alabama, knows the room very well. If there's anyone who knows the guy, he wasn't in love with the pick. So I do think this is without a doubt a special teams pick. Like, there's no way for him onto the field, at least within the first couple of years, if it's not on special teams.
Well, if you look at Andrew Voorhees, that was a guy. He was like a top 40. A lot of people had him as the best guard, and guess who gets him? Baltimore Ravens. Just teams like that, just keep scooping up the good players, let him get healthy. And then, maybe his medicals are worse than the public knows, but the Ravens are a team. They're like, you know what? 7th round pick, who cares about a special teamer? We got plenty of guys.
What was the thing that came out on Tajay Sharp? He doesn't have an ACL or something like that.
Yeah.
Came out.
He literally doesn't have an ACL.
It's like basically like he'd be shocked. Like they were like, yeah, it's almost going to be impossible for him to play like 5 years in the NFL. Like, he basically has the Todd Gurley issue already, arthritis in his knee, and he's just getting out of college, which is terrible because that guy had stud potential to be a really good player in the NFL. Jake, you wrote some pretty positive things about this other 7th round.
Did you mean Tajay Spears?
Yeah.
I hate that. I really like the Tulane dude. You said Tajay Sharp, who played for us.
Okay,
which makes sense, but
yeah.
No, I love Spears too. He went to the Titans, and dude's a 8 USC alive. That does suck though. But anyways, the last guy, Jovan Gwynn, I wasn't on my radar, but from South Carolina, it was pretty easy to find some stuff on him. Super athletic. I in my mock too, the last one, my final predictions, I had him taking Trevor Reed and Jordan McFadden, both in that same mold. Really athletic interior guys that you can develop just to get some blood at the position, which they did need. And I like the pick. Some center flexibility, some guard flexibility. Pretty good value. This is another spot I think maybe you could have gone with Voorhees, but whatever. This guy's healthy. But I like his developmental upside. He could be a starting center one day. He definitely has the athletic profile for it. Good run blocker. Just the type of guy they like. I don't think you can really give this too harsh of a knock for a 7th round pick.
Yeah, it sounds like he is just a Matt Hennessy type, reserve guy, can play center, guard, positional flexibility. And you need
that's becoming such a trend too. Like, we're seeing these guys. Like pure guards and pure tackles, I feel like are really starting to become devalued, especially in the later rounds. And people are going for these guys that can play 5 positions.
Yeah. Oh, certainly.
I mean, overall though, another Falcons draft that we have no idea what's going to happen. And that's the way all these draft classes are, which is why they're so funny. I mean, they could come out of this thing with 4 Pro Bowlers, or they could come out of this thing with everyone being a bust, plus Bijan Robinson, because he's not busting.
But as long as it's not 2017.
20. Oh yeah. Oh Jesus.
That was tack.
I was thinking 2016, and I was like 20 because 2016 was elite. That was why we made the Super Bowl.
I don't think anybody in 2017. Yeah, I don't think anybody in 2017 got a second contract. But if they did, it was Oliver on a 1 year. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. Well, I don't think it's going to be that bad. It looks like the Falcons have done a pretty good job in these first 2 drafts. So if they nail this one, things are going to get interesting.